Who will replace Joe Biden? After growing pressure about his age and health, Biden has dropped out of the presidential race. Mark White has more.
Well, the smart money is on Vice President Kamala Harris, who's already now been endorsed by President Biden and around 500 other prominent Democrats. She may not have been the first choice candidate, but this close to a presidential election, there may be little other option.
Top Democrats back Kamala Harris, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, who've thrown their weight behind Kamala. But former President Barack Obama hasn't done so yet.
So unprecedented times stateside. But how have Americans reacted to the news overnight?
Harris polls well against Trump, so I think she has a real shot at winning.
I just don't, like I said, I'm still trying to process this because I'm literally just like, damn.
There isn't a strong alternative, but it's better in my mind. Whoever it is better than Trump.
I was gonna vote for Biden.
So, drama stateside, but closer to home, the Prime Minister is launching Skills England, a body aimed at fixing the, quote, fragmented and broken skills training system in Britain, whilst also reducing the reliance on overseas workers.
Disruption and delays. After Friday's global tech meltdown, there are warnings of flight cancellations and difficulty seeing your GP. So let us know if you've been impacted.
And as always, this show is nothing about you. GBNews.com/your say, including your questions for our special guest this week, Miriam. Welcome.
Good to be here.
We're going to have a chat more in detail just after the news, but this is you're standing in for Bev all this week. You're very excited.
Very excited. Some great news to cover, so I'm just hoping you'll guide me through.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll hold your hand. We'll have some fun as well. But first, here's your news headlines with Sophia.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sophia Wensler from the GB Newsroom. It's just gone 9:30. Your headlines. President Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris after announcing he's standing down from the US presidential race. The Prime Minister has praised Mr. Biden for making a decision based on what he believed to be in the best interest of the American people. The 81-year-old had faced increasing calls to step aside since a faltering debate performance against Republican Donald Trump last month. The news comes just 4 months before Americans go to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Kamala Harris says she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in my power to defeat Donald Trump. In response to Biden's endorsement, Ms. Harris said, "I'm honoured to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win his nomination." Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined Mr. Biden in throwing their support behind her. A whole host of A-list celebrities have also backed her, but former President Barack Obama has stopped short of endorsing her. The Prime Minister today is set to bring together government, business, trade unions and training organisations as he launches a new skills body. Skills England was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix the fragmented and broken training systems. In a speech today, Sir Keir Starmer will argue a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could slash the number of apprenticeships on offer. And normal levels of service at GP surgeries will take some time to return after Friday's global IT outage. The British Medical Association is warning GPs need time to catch up on lost work over the weekend after the tech glitch knocked a computer system used by doctors offline. The problems with faulty security software CrowdStrike affected more than 8 million computers worldwide, bringing chaos to transport networks and health services. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and a very good morning to you. Hope you're well. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK with me, Ben Leo, and for this week, a special guest, Miriam Cates. Morning, Miriam.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I've admired you a long time when you were an MP, you know, fighting for women's rights and so on and so on. But now you're here, gracing the nation with your expertise. And I said in the handover with Eamon and Ellie, you're not a career politician, are you? You've got such an elaborate background. You were a science teacher, you were a stay-at-home mum, and now you're here. A fresh start.
A fresh start for me, yes, indeed. And very excited to be here. And I've learned a lot during my time as an MP and, of course, as a teacher and a mum as well, about some of the big issues facing our country, particularly around children and families. They often don't get much attention, as you've said. So looking forward to a bit of a career change. And
normally, you're in for a bit of a treat, because normally this time of year is called silly season, where Parliament's out, nothing's going on, and you're kind of scraping the barrel for news. But as you said, there's so much going on. We've got a new Parliament, we've got Sir Keir Starmer. What do you make of the new Labour government? Well,
of course, it's early days and they've extended the parliamentary term because of all the new legislation to get through. I'm particularly concerned about some of the education policies, but also a lot of people will be pleased to hear movement on housing and things like that. So it's early days, but of course we're potentially going to have a new government in the States as well, so lots to commentate on. Well,
yes, that is the stunning story this morning, because, of course, Joe Biden last night dropped out of the US presidential race. It was a historic day for the Democrats as he announced he was standing down, saying that it was in the interest of his party and the country. It followed weeks of intense pressure from fellow Democrats after a stumbling debate performance against Donald Trump at the end of June.
No, we had a really good bilateral yesterday. We were billed for 45 minutes. We went on for the best part of an hour. We went through a huge number of issues at pace. He was actually on really good form and
mentally agile,
absolutely across all the detail.
OK, right. Joining us now is GBNews reporter Mark White, who has the latest on this. Good morning, Mark. Thanks for joining us. I mean, chaos overnight in the US. What's the latest this morning?
Well, morning, Miriam. Morning, Ben. It is still really the process we're in at the moment is the US absorbing what was a seismic decision, because we're getting all the mood music, of course, from the Biden camp in recent days and weeks was that he was going nowhere, that he would fight the November election, only, of course, for yesterday afternoon to drop that social media bombshell that now everybody is absorbing and reacting to it. And of course, we've got lots of people on there praising the selfless nature and statesman-like decision by Joe Biden to go. But there's no doubt about it, Joe Biden's hand was forced here after prominent Democrat after prominent Democrat came out publicly and privately and said that he had to go. But really, I think there are some questions that need to be asked of the Democratic Party, and some soul-searching here as to why this ever got to the stage it got to, because everybody seems to have been so shocked by that performance at the debate a month ago. But his health and cognitive decline has been perfectly apparent to anybody who cared to look for many, many months, for years. So why he was ever allowed or encouraged to seek nomination again to become president is a question, I think, that still needs to be answered. But going forward, of course, who is going to succeed him as the nominee? He has endorsed Kamala Harris, his vice president. 500 other prominent Democrats have now also endorsed Kamala Harris. That is the easiest fit for them going forward. An open primary next month could be very messy indeed. All the campaign funding as well, there's issues about that not being able to be available to other candidates, so it's much easier for it just all to switch to Kamala Harris, and then she can have the party machinery behind her in going forward to try to take on Donald Trump.
OK, Mark, great stuff. We'll come back to you later on in the show. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And joining us now, political analyst and former Democratic National Committee Commissioner, Namiki Konst. Thank you so much for joining us. So why now? Why has Biden stepped down now after weeks, in fact, months of speculation?
Well, I think, obviously after the debate, there were folks who started to trickle out and say, it's time for him to get out of the race. There was a lot of social media uproar. We saw it. The difference is there was a circular firing squad. I am not going to sugarcoat this. I personally don't think that this was handled in the most professional way. I think there were a lot of forces behind the scenes that were looking for an opportunity to join a new ticket, to get some campaign contracts. I mean, this is a billion-dollar industry. It's quite different than the UK system. Our political system runs year-round, 24/7, and there is a cottage industry. It's not a cottage industry. It is a major industry, a political industrial complex that benefits from these races. And when, we didn't have a primary this cycle, that shut out a lot of folks who probably could get some contracts. And not to mention, there are people down ballot who were worried about the polls affecting them. But I truly feel a lot of that was out of fear. Now, I'm not denying that President Biden has been dealing with cognitive issues. As your previous interview said, this has been known for a long time. I'm actually faulting the Democratic National Committee, which I was a part of reforming, in not taking those reforms seriously and shutting out a real deliberative process to, in 2020, pushing out other candidates, coming behind. Joe Biden was 5th place in 2020.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris didn't win a primary state. So to subvert democracy in order to push forward President Biden, who I think, by the way, let me be very clear, has been a very good president, far more progressive, especially domestic.
So this is a gift to Trump and Vance, isn't it? Because Kamala Harris is even less popular, she's polling even less well than President Biden. So surely this is an absolute win for Trump and Vance.
I actually don't think so at all. You see, especially even after Trump's shooting and the RNC, which usually gets a bump, that they didn't bump up at all. It was just that Joe Biden was sinking in the polls. And not drastically. Everyone keeps saying drastically, drastically. It was with a couple points over the margin of error, something that was very manageable, especially at this stage in the race. But the problem was you had all of the president's allies coming around him, pressuring him, and his social media and media operation, pressuring him to get out of the race, which was left a little confidence. And of course, the donors started to pull out. And that's really how this is all run. So I think really it's for Kamala Harris to reinvigorate the party now. Already you're seeing a boost in fundraising, the best fundraising day in history. Yesterday, I believe 2,000 African-American women got on a Zoom call to talk about operationalizing and organizing and supporting Kamala Harris. Excuse me, I think it was 20,000, not 2,000. So you see a party that in 24 hours, less than 24 hours, has been reinvigorated. And not to forget that this election is very much going to be decided by women. That is how it's been for the last several cycles, especially those independent women. And those women are not pulling towards the Trump-Vance ticket, partially because of their records, especially Vance. Well, both of them are pretty bad, but Vance has been pretty vocal about his positions. As a 39-year-old, you'd think that he wouldn't want to go back 100 years, especially somebody who was anti-Trump just a few years ago. So this, I think, is going to be very good all around. And, women do vote more loyally than men do. And Republicans are doubling down on young conservative voters who just don't have the track record in turning out as women do.
OK, interesting. It's going to be a fascinating couple of months. Namiki Const, the former Democratic National Committee Commissioner, thanks very much for joining us. So if you're wondering who Kamala Harris is, her background and so on, so she was the former San Francisco District Attorney and the California Attorney General, and the attack lines, Miriam, overnight is that she put over 1,500 people in jail for non-violent cannabis violations, then laughed about it when asked if she ever smoked cannabis herself. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labour workers for the state of California, and blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. But if you really want to get a flavour of her, check out this clip of her introducing herself at a meeting last year.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
I'm Ben Leo, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm sitting next to Miriam Cates. What did you think of that, Miriam?
Well, she's got a mountain to climb, and her more recent record as well on immigration and speaking in public are going to make it very difficult for her, and Obama hasn't backed her yet. So I think it looks like she'll be the candidate, but I don't think it's guaranteed.
Why do you think Obama hasn't backed her?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know yet. It looks like it's too late for somebody else, but it'll be interesting to see if he does actually follow suit with all the other senior Democrats. We'll see.
Do you think she'd, being so keen on pronouns and so on? Do you think she'd get on quite well with the Labour government and Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, my views on pronouns are well known. And up next, have you heard of a Ponzi scheme public sector pension? Well, we're going to find out why they could bankrupt Britain. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam Cates and Ben Leo.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand, just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on this show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think pretty fairly priced products, and even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 9:48. I hope you're doing well. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Miriam Cates for this week, standing in for Andrew and Bev.
And the former Bank of England economist and author Neil Record has said the so-called public sector pension Ponzi scheme is going to blow a multi-trillion-pound hole in Britain's finances and could bankrupt Britain.
So I'm sure you're all aware, but if you're not, a Ponzi scheme promises a high rate of return with little risk to the investor and generally needs more people at the bottom of the pyramid to kind of sign up to keep the gravy train going.
And John Richards of the Unison Union said it's a myth that public sector pensions are gold-plated. Most are anything but excessive. So Sam Bidwell, who is the director of the Next Generation Centre at the Adam Smith Institute, is here to explain more. So welcome, Sam. Thank you for joining us. So what's your take on this? Is it true that Britain cannot afford these enormous sums for public sector pensions in the future?
Well, look, good morning, both, and thanks so much for having me on. Look, as the analysis that you referred to at the beginning there pointed out, we've got 4.9 trillion in pension commitments from the state in the years going ahead, right? And that's just at the moment. That's before we bring anyone else into the workforce. All of that's going to have to be paid for by general taxation at the cost at the moment of $50 billion to the taxpayer per year. That's all coming from general taxation. Let's be absolutely clear. There isn't some pot that people pay into all their lives to then draw from. This is a taxpayer-funded benefit to older people, particularly from the public sector. We know that that's likely to increase over the years. There have been no steps from governments of either party to change the rules around this. And as you know very well, Miriam, we've got a shrinking taxpayer base too. We've got a smaller number of people from working age who are now working age, because we've got a low fertility rate, which means fewer people coming into the workforce. So you've got fewer people being taxed, fewer people working, to pay for a greater number of people who are actually receiving those taxpayer benefits. So pretty clearly, there are some structural problems in the way that we're providing support to former public sector workers and to our pensioners in general.
So what you're saying is, in the years to come, in 20, 30, 40 years, the kind of pension payments that we're committed to now will nowhere near be met by the taxes of people working then. And as you referred to, a lot of people think that their pensions is just a pot that they've paid into, which isn't the case at all, is it, for public sector pensions? But how do private sector pensions differ to this?
Well, this is it. So if you take a private sector pension, that is something you've paid into throughout your lifetime. Often that will be invested elsewhere, so that by the time you come to retire, you've got more money to draw from than you actually paid in. But in the public sector, as you say, that's not the case. What we're doing here is we're taxing working age people to pay for an existing benefit for pensioners. The number of working age people is going to shrink, so that the kind of Ponzi scheme framing that you referred to earlier, right? The Ponzi scheme relies on more people paying in than getting out. What we're going to have is a system where more people draw than are paying in. So, of course, what you do, you put taxes up, you borrow, all of these things, which will make life much, much harder for future governments.
So Labour did introduce in the King's speech a new pensions bill, but as far as I can see, that's going to do nothing to kind of fix the pension inequality we have on the horizon, is it?
Well, certainly not in any structural sense. Again, right, what we're looking at here is an entitlement which we're saying to working age people, it's fine, paying throughout your life, you'll be able to claim this when you're older. Patently, that's not true. The ASI, the Adam Smith Institute where I work, has done some research and has indicated that the state pension could go bust as early as 2035. So because of the size of these obligations, within 2 parliaments, we could be looking at the whole system going bust.
So you say go bust, but what does that actually mean? Do we mean that taxes will just rise beyond people's ability to pay? Do we mean the government's going to default on pensions and say, sorry, teachers, doctors, nurses, you paid your pension contributions, but actually there's nothing here for you? What do you actually mean that it's going to go bust?
So when we say go bust, what we mean is fall short of the obligations that it's made. So, of course, right, you can extend that date. Let's say we saw unprecedented growth, which I'm certainly not expecting, particularly after that ban on oil drilling. But let's say that we were to see much more growth than we're expecting, then, of course, the date would be pushed forward. Same if the government decided to increase taxation. But my question, I suppose, would be, where are you going to find the money? So where in people's pay packets are you going to squeeze them even further to pay for granny state pension and to pay for the public sector pension obligations that we've just been talking about, right? So, of course, the government could keep this scheme going for longer, but all we're doing is delaying the inevitable when we have a shrinking working age population. The only structural way for an economy to continue to make these kinds of promises to people is to be very fast growing, which I didn't see anywhere on the horizon at the moment, or to have a lot more kids and have a much broader tax base. Of course, you can also say, we'll bring in people from abroad to make that up. But again, we know that doesn't cut the mustard. We've seen in recent years that even with the addition of more than 2 million people in the last couple of years, we haven't actually had enough taxpayers to meet the cost of state pensions without taxing working age people quite a lot.
OK, Sam Bidwell, you are the Director of Next Generation Centre at the Adam Smith Institute. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, Miriam, this has been described as a quote, this is by Neil Record, the former Bank of England economist. He said it's an absolute scandal that successive governments had failed to control the, quote, appalling situation head-on. So, as a former politician, why do you reckon successive governments haven't sorted this out if it's going to be such a tsunami of chaos?
Well, I think partly for that reason. It's too difficult a problem to solve. It's too expensive. People want their pensions. It's very unpopular to cut them. But also, we've had enormous excess in life expectancy. One of the problems is people now live so long. That's a good thing, but it wasn't anticipated when the state pension, for example, was first invented, when I think life expectancy was 65. So big changes.
There we go. I wonder who's going to be in power when it all comes to a head. Right, up next, have any more US political heavyweights given their backing to a replacement for Joe Biden? We'll have the latest very shortly. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Marco, how's your weather?
brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We're starting the new working week on a rather cloudy note with outbreaks of rain in places. That will tend to clear to sunshine and showers as we head into the afternoon. This morning we've got some heavy bursts of rain across the south of Scotland into northern parts of England. Across Northern Ireland, the rain tended to clear to give way to some sunshine through the morning, whereas the rain across the south will also move its way away towards the east, allowing skies to brighten from the west. And certainly across southern parts of the UK into the afternoon, plenty of sunshine around. Much of Wales, central and southern England should see plenty in the way of sunshine, lifting temperatures around about 24 Celsius, 75 in Fahrenheit. A few heavy showers though across northern England and southern Scotland this afternoon. Could even be a few thunderstorms here to end the day. So as we end in the afternoon then with a mixture of sunshine and showers across Scotland. Again, one or two of those showers could be on the heavy side, particularly across southern parts of the country, and two across parts of Northern Ireland into the north of England, where again we could see one or two thunderstorms as we go into the early evening on Monday. Whereas across more southern parts of the UK, much of central southern England and Wales ending the day fine. Again, plenty of sunshine around and temperatures at this stage still into the low 20s Celsius. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period on Monday, notice that the showers start to ease for a while, but we will see more showers moving in from the west, certainly across parts of England and Wales, so turning quite wet once again by Tuesday morning here. The best of the clear spells overnight into Tuesday morning reserved for the north and northwest of the UK, and here it will turn quite chilly under those clear spells by Tuesday morning. We could see temperatures down into single figures, whereas towards England and Wales, with the cloud and the showers around, temperatures hold up in the mid to high teens, so quite a humid night here. As for Tuesday, well, quite a cloudy start across England and Wales, further showery bursts of rain in places. That gradually starting to ease as we go through the day, giving way to a mix of sunshine and showers. The showers easing though from the northwest later, so Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland should end the day on quite a sunny note as a ridge of high pressure moves in from the west. Those temperatures responding to the sunshine into the low to mid 20s in places.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire on the A64, there's a lane closed eastbound. There's an accident just after the A659 at Tadcaster, taking 20 minutes in queues from Headley Bar. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, the southbound exit at junction 42. The eastbound M62 is partly blocked for repairs with delays from junction 44 at Rothwell. In South Yorkshire, the A61 is closed along Barnsley Road at Mapplewell after an accident. Greater Manchester, the A676 is closed along Deansgate in Bolton after a fire. On the M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire, there's a lane closed southbound. There's a breakdown and fuel spill at junction 10 at Tamworth, with queues from junction 11 at Burton upon Trent. On the M25 from Hertfordshire into Buckinghamshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed anti-clockwise after an accident between junctions 17 and 16 from Maple Cross to the M40, with queues each way from junction 19 at Watford and 15 for the M4. And in Devon, the A38 is closed westbound at Smidley after a crane caught fire, with queues from Lee Mill Bridge.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Hope you're well. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, 22nd of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Ben Leo, and Miriam Case, in for Andrew and Bev. Who will replace Joe Biden after growing pressure about his age and health? You saw it last night. Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Ray Addison has more.
Kamala Harris is already working to secure hundreds of delegates ahead of a speech this afternoon as Obama and Pelosi keep their powder dry.
Top Democrats back Kamala Harris. Bill and Hillary Clinton have thrown their weight behind Kamala, but interestingly, former President Barack Obama hasn't done so just yet.
And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared this beautiful new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday this morning. For those on radio, it's a black and white picture of him dressed in a suit and an open-necked white shirt, looking very handsome.
Definitely, handsome chap indeed. Closer to home, the Prime Minister is launching Skills England. That's a body aimed at fixing the, quote, fragmented and broken skills training system in Britain and reducing the reliance on overseas workers.
Disruption and delays. After Friday's global tech meltdown, there are warnings of flight cancellations and difficulty in seeing your GP. So let us know if you've been impacted as we discuss this later on in the show. So we'd love to know what you think. So send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And we've got some interesting stories coming up, particularly about Labour, what they're saying about discipline in the classroom, maybe ending suspensions and exclusions in school.
Have you seen this at home? Labour, so let's just get this straight. Not only are they potentially encouraging thousands of private school kids into state schools because of the VAT on private schools, they're now mooting, scrapping detentions, isolation booths. I mean, when I was at school, it was bad enough. You had, class clowns disrupting the lessons, but now they want to get rid of discipline altogether.
And, of course, you always want to keep kids in the classroom if you can, but there always comes a time when someone's just too disruptive and the other kids can't learn. So I think this is a very troubling news. But let us know what you think.
Right, first, here's your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your top story this hour, as you've been hearing, President Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris after announcing he's standing down from the US presidential race. The Prime Minister has praised Mr. Biden for making a decision based on what he believed to be in the best interest of the American people. The 81-year-old had faced increasing calls to step aside since a faltering debate performance against Republican Donald Trump last month. The news comes just 4 months before America goes to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Kamala Harris says she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in her power to defeat Donald Trump. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined Mr. Biden in throwing their support behind her. A whole host of A-list celebrities have also backed her, but former President Barack Obama has stopped short of endorsing Kamala Harris. Democratic strategist Spencer Critchley says he's not surprised.
He's aware that his endorsement carries a great deal of weight, and he's always been reluctant, since that's been the case, to endorse any Democratic candidate before something like a primary contest has been settled. Because he doesn't want to be in the position, I don't believe, of having endorsed one candidate, say, and then having another one be chosen and diluting the impact of his endorsement and potentially sowing some division within the party.
Meanwhile, former US President Donald Trump, who's standing for the Republican Party, has responded to the news. Writing on his Truth Social platform, he said Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was. He also said, "We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we'll remedy the damage he's done very quickly." Trump has called Biden the worst president in US history. Here in the UK, the Prime Minister today is set to bring together government, business, trade unions and training organisations as he launches a new skills body. Skills England was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix the fragmented and broken training systems. In a speech today, Sir Keir Starmer will argue a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could slash the number of apprenticeships on offer. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson laid out the new plans.
Time that we took skills far more seriously as a country, and the steps that we're setting out today to establish Skills England, to bring together that work across government, is how we will tackle all of those big skills shortages that we see in our economy. We've seen a doubling since 2017 in skills shortages. We know that too few of our young people have the chance to take on an apprenticeship. The numbers have fallen massively under the Conservatives. We'll do that working with businesses, with providers, with our regional mayors, so that our country gets a really brighter future and all of our people get the chance to succeed at work.
Meanwhile, the Conservative leadership race is gathering pace, with Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride the latest Tory to hint at a run at the top job. Speaking to GB News earlier, he was asked whether he would stand.
I haven't ruled that out and I haven't ruled it in. We don't yet know what the contest holds. The party board is going to come forward shortly, I think, with the process, and I will finally take a decision at that time. Some colleagues have been speaking to me about that possibility, and it's something that I'm weighing up.
In other news, 6 people, including 2 children, have died in a road crash in West Yorkshire. It happened when a Ford Focus and a motorcycle collided on the A61 between Barnsley and Wakefield. Superintendent Alan Travis from the West Yorkshire Police said this is an absolutely tragic incident which has resulted in the loss of 6 lives. Normal levels of service at GP surgeries will take some time to return after Friday's global IT outage. The British Medical Association is warning GPs need time to catch up on lost work over the weekend after the tech glitch knocked a computer system used by doctors offline. The problems with faulty security software CrowdStrike affected more than 8 million computers worldwide, bringing chaos to transport networks and health services. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday. The image was taken by his mother, Princess Catherine, and posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. The black and white shot shows the future king smiling, wearing a white shirt and dark blazer. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, live with Miriam and Ben, standing in for Bev and Andrew, who are on holiday, I believe.
Yes, it's going to be a fun week, guaranteed. Right, we're going to cross live to Farnborough, where the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is speaking about Labour's new Skills England project.
We know that national renewal, it's not going to happen overnight. We are fixing the very foundation of our country, and that is long and patient work. But I can announce another step along that road today, another marker of the future, with the launch of a new organisation that we hope will transform not just how we train our young people and adults, but also the relationship between business and the education system. A plan to make sure that we're training young people not just for any business, but for the businesses that exist in their communities. The skills that you and they need to take each other forward. So I'm delighted that today we're launching Skills England and appointing Richard Pennycook as the interim chair. And I'm excited for the work that we can do together. I've just met this morning some of the fantastic apprentices, bright, energetic, intelligent, and absolute credit to Airbus and Rolls-Royce. Now, I've met the apprentices in both Airbus and Rolls-Royce many times before. Almost all of my speeches in the last 2 or 3 years have featured examples of the work that they are doing. And it was brilliant to meet them here again this morning. Some of them were from a group that I met just a few months ago in Derby. So to renew that, one of them was just 2 weeks into her apprenticeship. And so they were an incredible reminder of the talent that we have going forward. And I was allowed to speak to them without anybody else listening in because I wanted to hear directly from them and ask them, as I always do, what inspired them to do it, what gave them that spark. And then towards the end of the time I had with them this morning, I said, what do you want me to think about? Because this is a government of service. You're entitled to have your say. What do you want me to think about as Prime Minister heading a new government? And after a few moments, they were pretty clear in their collective view that they wanted me and the government to think about the value of apprentices and to make sure that that was valued alongside the other things that so many young people do. And that was them to me. And I think for all of you, you'll be really proud that that was their first thought. That was what they wanted me to think about as I go home from here. And so they are a reminder of the incredible talent that we do have in this country. Young people with drive, ambition, and hopes of a better future. But we do have also, to be honest, all too often young people in our country have been let down, not given access to the right opportunities or training in their community. And that's created an over-reliance in our economy on higher and higher levels of migration. Now, I don't for a second want to demean any of that. I do not criticise businesses who hire overseas workers. And I certainly don't diminish the contribution that migration makes to our economy, to our public services, and of course to our communities. Migration is part of our national story. It always has been, always will be. And yet, if you stand back, as a system, it cannot be right that some people don't get to feel the pride of making a contribution, the dignity of work, just because we can't find a way of creating a coherent skills system. That can't be right.
OK, there is the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, speaking in Farnborough, live right now, launching Labour's Skills England project. So, Miriam, what do you make of that? I mean, what is that about? Is it promoting apprenticeships or what's going on? Well,
I think it's fairly light on details at the moment. It's certainly clear that there are skills gaps in our economy, particularly in some of the traditional skills like welding and plumbing. But it doesn't seem clear what the answers are here from Keir Starmer. And to me, the problem seems to be that we just don't have enough young people coming into the workplace to replace people who are retiring. And that's because we've had a very low birth rate for very long and because we've focused on universities so much. Yeah, Elon Musk says that the low birth rate globally, not just in the UK, is a bigger threat to humanity than, say, climate change. I completely agree. Why aren't we having kids? Well, this is this is worthy of a whole programme, I think. But lots of reasons. But it isn't just here. It's across the whole world, the Western world particularly, but even the developing world now. People are having fewer children than we need to replace those leaving the economy. And I think that's a bigger problem than the fact that kids are not choosing to go into these particular sectors, although that is a problem too. Yeah, well, the problem is, especially with, I mean, you're a former politician, with the last Conservative government, young people especially don't have anything to conserve anymore. They don't have homes, so they're not having families, and that's why the birth rate goes down. Exactly. But, yeah, anyway, we move on. It's a historic day for America. President Joe Biden announced last night, did you miss it, in a startling declaration that he was standing down from the presidential race, saying it's in the interest of his party and the country. Well, it took him long enough, didn't it? And it follows weeks of intense pressure from fellow Democrats after a stumbling debate performance against Donald Trump at the end of June. Take a listen to this.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look.
OK, joining us now is GBNews reporter Ray Addison. Good morning, Ray. I know you have a keen eye on everything US politics. Why did this take so long? And actually, do the Democrats have something to answer for when it comes to the last couple of years? Because they were saying all the concerns and the conjecture around Biden's health was just conspiracy and slurs.
Well, yeah, it certainly seemed to take a long time for President Biden to stand down from this nomination, the Democratic nomination. I think people had been pretty certain that after that debate performance, which many people described as disastrous, it was a shoo-in that he would have to eventually go. However, he had a lot of support from his family, not least his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden. They went away to Camp David, didn't they? And it seemed that they decided they would try to carry on. However, that wave of maneuvers by Democrats, not least former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, against him meant that the die was cast. And now the Vice President Kamala Harris is on her own maneuvers. We heard that as soon as that statement was issued by Biden on X, that she immediately, her team began calling the hundreds and hundreds of delegates who she will need to get the support from at the Democratic Convention in August, at the end of August, to get their support and get their backing. And one of the surprising names that we're hearing is the Governor Newsroom, who has now come out in support of her, calling her tough and fearless. And so it appears that she is certainly moving in the right direction. In terms of her opportunities to address the public, this is a new dawn for her and potentially for America. She's speaking today at 3:30 UK time on the South Lawn of the White House. It was supposed to be a sports event, but this will be her opportunity to pitch herself to America.
Thank you very much, Ray. And joining us now is the former Nevada Republican Party chairwoman, Amy Tarkanian. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us. This is clearly big news that Biden's pulled out of the race, but there are also questions about his fitness to continue now as president. What do the Republicans have to say about that?
Yes, 100%. And already a Republican Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, has announced that she was going to ask for the invocation of the 25th Amendment to have him removed from continuing to serve in the White House, because now the question is, if he's not well enough to continue to run for re-election, then what makes you think that he's well enough to continue to serve the entire nation? It's a legitimate question. And I think it's one that he's definitely going to have to come to terms with, just like he was having to come to terms with not running for re-election. I think, it's one thing to say that, oh, he stepped aside selflessly, he's gracefully bowing out. No, he was pushed out, and he had to have a really hard conversation and see that the poll numbers were not in his favor. And I think that conversation is probably going to have to extend to his remaining in the White House.
So this is unprecedented, isn't it, in terms of US history? And if something big were to happen now, if there were to be a massive world event that would need America's leadership, what would technically happen now that people know that Biden is not really running the country?
Well, I think it would just continue to be the same. So he's obviously surrounded by people who felt that they could control him. They felt that it was okay to keep propping him up and using him just as a spokesperson or a talking head. And when that simple task wasn't able to be accomplished, they're now having to find somebody else and do a plan B. But there's people already now. This has just solidified some of the thoughts that people had already had, that he was not the one making the directions. He was not the one pulling the strings, that he's actually being told by others around him what needs to be done. And that's just what would continue to happen.
Amy, lots of people saying overnight that this whole sorry episode has just proven how deceitful the Democrats have been, because as far back as 2 years ago, people could see the decline of Joe Biden starting, and it's only now they've capitulated and said, well, yeah, OK, yeah, he's not fit to be president. But we saw this 2 years ago, and they've covered for him and covered for him and covered for him.
Sure. And it's unfortunate, and it's been really hard and actually quite sad, no matter what party you're affiliated with, to watch somebody unravel before the world. And it's been painfully obvious that there has been massive mental and health struggles. If it were my father, if it were my husband, if it were my brother, I would never want to have him unravel before the world's eyes. But yet his family felt comfortable enough to continue to put push him, and it's a shame. And so, you know, he's actually not the first president that has had massive health problems while being in the White House. It's just we have social media.
Yeah.
We have cameras on him, you know, 100%. So you can't hide it as well as we had been able to in the past.
Yeah, got it. Amy Tarkanian, former Nevada Republican Party chairwoman, thank you for joining us. Right, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, as I said, the world and his dog could see the decline in Joe Biden. But look what happened when Sir Keir Starmer met the president a few weeks back. I think it was at the NATO summit in Washington. He was asked if Joe Biden was senile, and this is the Prime Minister's response.
No, we had a really good bilateral yesterday. We were billed for 45 minutes. We went on for the best part of an hour. We went through a huge number of issues at pace. He was actually on really good form. And
mentally agile,
absolutely across all the detail.
So he's not senile, he's on really good form, and then, you know, 7, 8, 9 days later, he powers out the presidential. What does that say about Sir Keir Starmer's judgment of character, do you reckon?
Well, I think it's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because mental decline is gradual. There would have been a point when Joe Biden absolutely was fit for office, and then gradually he becomes less and less fit. And it's very difficult for the people around him and him himself to judge when actually is that moment. Now, for people in ordinary jobs, it's perhaps not a big deal. When you're the President of the United States, it is a huge deal. But nonetheless, he is ageing in the way that many other people age. So I don't think it's easy. And like Amy said, when your whole life is played out on social media, as a former politician, I can relate to that. It's very difficult when every slip-up is caught on camera.
When you were a politician, did you feel the pressure socially when you were out and about, I don't know, having dinner with your husband and family? Did you think people would recognise you?
Well, they did, certainly in your constituency, because your face is on every leaflet.
Yeah.
And it is awkward if you're in a restaurant and people are looking at you. And unfortunately, it means you can't go to Co-op in your pyjamas. I mean, I think I'll look forward to doing that.
Well, you can now. So you're out of politics.
Absolutely.
You're out of politics, getting into TV, so you're free to do that kind of thing. A couple of emails from you on gbnews.com/yoursay. I think it's Emily, who says, Miriam is an excellent stand-in. She's doing very well and a breath of fresh air. Welcome, Miriam.
Thank you. My apprenticeship is going well.
Yes, and someone else says, great to see Miriam on GB News. I hope she sticks around. And just one more quick one from Graham about the birth rate. Why would you choose to bring lots of kids into the world? Just look around. It's a S show. I feel sorry for my lad growing up here. What do you think about that?
Well, of course...
It's a valid argument, isn't it?
Well, we do have some problems in this country, that's true, and across the world. But actually, a lot of the disaster narrative isn't true. It's a great time to be born in terms of life expectancy, reduced disease, producing more food than we ever have done in the world. So a lot of this disaster narrative, I think, isn't necessarily true. But, of course, we do have problems, and I do empathise with that point of view.
It's a really good point. Again, it's probably a case of social media amplifying things.
Absolutely.
The news cycle is now 24/7. Right, we move on. The Education Secretary has warned that private schools have had, quote, ample time to prepare for Labour's VAT tax raid. What do you think about that? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Back in a tick.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, you know, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like, and it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's right. Not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it, and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own isolitas out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
So these are your books here. So my first cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was the world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies, and it's so popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important
It's very important
Yeah.
because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said Stum.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 10:25. You're with Ben and Miriam on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. We're also joined by former Labour advisor Matthew Larser and author and journalist Emma Wolfe in the studio. Good morning. Good morning to you both. What should we get stuck into first? What about this one from The Telegraph, Matthew? Labour's tax raid on private schools.
Absolutely. So this morning, Bridget Phillipson, the new Education Secretary, has been doing her first sort of big intervention of the government. Amongst other things, she has doubled down on the government's plans to introduce VAT on private school fees. There was some talk during the election that this might be delayed, it might be pushed, if not into the long grass, into the medium grass, and instead it's not going to be pushed into the future. It's actually going to be rolled out sooner. So rather than September next year, obviously the start of that school year, would VAT be slapped on private school fees? It looks like they're going to try and bring it in January.
So is this fair on schools and parents, particularly parents who are really scrimping and saving to send their kids to independent schools? Is it fair to introduce it mid-year when families have already made their budgets?
Well, that will be the big question, whether it's fair to introduce it mid-year. I mean, in terms of the general fairness point, Phillipson this morning was saying, well, schools have had plenty of time to prepare. It was a Labour policy since 2021. And, of course, one of the key things Labour says is that the schools don't have to pass it all on. Two things. One, obviously, when your VAT's imposed, you can claim some of it back as a business, but also because when, there are sort of fat that can be cut in private schools, just as there was when austerity meant that school budgets in the sector, the state sector that 93% of Britain's kids go to, was imposed on them.
It's interesting, isn't it, how Labour's magic money tree is actually not very fruitful at all, and that they're starting to panic and they need cash. And I really object to this kind of, punishing children, basically. It's like the the two-child benefit cap, which, we can argue endlessly about feckless, irresponsible parents having 6, 7 children if they can't afford them. But when children suffer, many parents who send their children to private schools, like my parents, absolutely are scrimping and saving and deciding to do that with their money, to do that with any spare money that they're not going on foreign holidays, they're not buying new cars, whatever it is, and that they are prioritising that money in order to send their... all private school parents are wealthy. Not all private schools, like Eton, like Winchester, are able to just suck it up. There are schools now that are going to close down because of this, and there are children who are going to be moved out of private schools into state schools, and let's not even go into what that's going to do to local
Well, there's spare capacity in most state schools at the moment.
There isn't.
Let me play devil's advocate.
That is simply not true. No, Matthew, I'm getting a 3-year-old at the moment into private schools. There isn't spare capacity
One of the biggest concerns,
schools.
though, is about children with special educational needs, because it's certainly true, and I think Labour will agree that actually a lot of the kids in private schools are there because their parents couldn't get their needs met in the state system. This is going to be hugely expensive for the state system. They may have capacity for children without additional needs, but have they got the capacity?
So I think that's one of the big stumbling blocks in this policy, and I wonder if, in return for introducing the policy in January rather than in September, there's going to be special provision for those with special educational needs.
Right, let's move on. Page 2 of the Daily Telegraph. Alert over energy drink diets. Emma, what is this about?
Well, this is really, sorry to be angry again, but this is really
You're
rich.
fuming this morning.
I am. Well, cycling through central London in this Monday morning traffic really gets you in a bad mood. No, this is rich. I mean, the NHS the director, the NHS mental health director, Claire Murdoch, starting to talk about energy drinks being one of the drivers of eating disorders. Now, as you know, I had anorexia for 10 years. I've written endlessly. I've written 10 books about eating disorders, mental health, young people, all of that, anorexia. There are lots of things that are fueling eating disorders, and we can go into all that. We don't have time. But the one thing that's not fueling eating disorders or particularly contributing is energy drinks. If you have anorexia, you're going to be either starving, using chewing gum, using ice cubes, using energy drinks, using laxatives, abusing diuretics, all of those kinds of things. Energy drinks are not the key driver. The NHS mental health director needs to focus on providing support and therapy at an early stage, intervention at an early stage for young people suffering with eating disorders is key. The NHS is completely failing on that. For many reasons, the waiting lists are months long. I speak to parents and young people themselves every single day who say they are desperate to get help for young
and ongoing support as well, isn't it? That's that
ongoing support. But it's cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah.
It's hospitalisation in some cases. People being sent to the other side of the country with a 15-year-old daughter.
But do you think the broader point of marketing, and particularly now social media, it's much easier for people with eating disorders to find out some of these tricks, if you like, and that it is therefore becoming much more widespread because of social media? Do you think the NHS have got a point about the marketisation?
Trust me, when you have an eating disorder, you know, great. If you're having something, if you're having some energy, look, these are not, this is not really part of the mix. There's all sorts of stuff out there that we know is fat-free, taste-free, calorie-free, sugar-free, all of that stuff.
Can I just ask a basic question, just in case anyone's not following along? Why are energy drinks supposedly good for diet? Is it because they're low-cal and they keep you feeling full?
So high in caffeine gives you some energy, full of nothing, basically, full of chemicals and whatever. But as I say, there are so many kind of advice. I mean, what about the internet? Let's crack down on the internet, which is full of really hateful pro-anorexia and pro-bulimia.
Do we need your lot to get involved here and ban energy drinks?
Well, I think, you know, I'm not one of those Labour people who's in favour of slapping a ban on everything, and I think I rather agree with Emma that what we need is a kind of holistic approach rather than just picking up what the latest kind of, you know, one little bit of the picture. We need to see the whole picture, which I hope overall on what's such an important subject will happen.
OK, thank you both. You'll be back in the next hour. We'll have some more juicy stories for you, I'm sure.
Indeed. And now it's time for your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Miriam, thank you. It's 10:30. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. President Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris after announcing he's standing down from the US presidential race. The Prime Minister has praised Mr. Biden for making a decision based on what he believed to be in the best interest of the American people. The 81-year-old had faced increasing calls to step aside since a faltering debate performance against Republican Donald Trump last month. The news comes just 4 months before Americans go to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Kamala Harris says she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in her power to defeat Donald Trump. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined Mr. Biden in throwing their support behind her. A whole host of A-list celebrities have also backed her, but former President Barack Obama has stopped short of endorsing her. The Prime Minister has set out plans to cut reliance on foreign workers by improving skills training in England. Skills England was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix the fragmented and broken training systems. In a speech today, Sir Keir Starmer argued that a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could slash the number of apprenticeships on offer. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday. The image was taken by his mother, Princess Catherine, and posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. The black and white shot shows the future king smiling, wearing a white shirt and a dark blazer. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound valued $1.2932 and €1.1873. The price of gold is £1,857.34 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,196 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thanks, Sophia. Plenty more to come, including the Prime Minister has set out his plans to fill the skills gap in Britain. But the big question is, do we have the population to do so? More to come. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Back in a tick.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We're starting the new working week on a rather cloudy note with outbreaks of rain in places. That will tend to clear to sunshine and showers as we head into the afternoon. This morning we've got some heavy bursts of rain across the south of Scotland into northern parts of England. Across Northern Ireland, the rain tended to clear to give way to some sunshine through the morning, whereas the rain across the south will also move its way away towards the east, allowing skies to brighten from the west. And certainly across southern parts of the UK into the afternoon, plenty of sunshine around. Much of Wales, central and southern England should see plenty in the way of sunshine, lifting temperatures around about 24 Celsius. 75 in Fahrenheit. A few heavy showers though across northern England and southern Scotland this afternoon. Could even be a few thunderstorms here to end the day. So as we end in the afternoon then with a mixture of sunshine and showers across Scotland. Again, one or two of those showers could be on the heavy side, particularly across southern parts of the country, and two across parts of Northern Ireland into the north of England, where again we could see one or two thunderstorms as we go into the early evening on Monday. Whereas across more southern parts of the UK, much of central southern England and Wales ending the day fine. Again, plenty of sunshine around and temperatures at this stage still into the low 20s Celsius. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period on Monday, notice that the showers start to ease for a while, but we will see more showers moving in from the west, certainly across parts of England and Wales, so turning quite wet once again by Tuesday morning here. The best of the clear spells overnight into Tuesday morning reserved for the north and northwest of the UK, and here it will turn quite chilly under those clear spells by Tuesday morning. We could see temperatures down into single figures, whereas towards England and Wales, with the cloud and the showers around, temperatures hold up in the mid to high teens, so quite a humid night here. As for Tuesday, well, quite a cloudy start across England and Wales, further showery bursts of rain in places. That gradually starting to ease as we go through the day, giving way to a mix of sunshine and showers. The showers easing though from the northwest later, so Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland should end the day on quite a sunny note as a ridge of high pressure moves in from the west. Those temperatures responding to the sunshine into the low to mid 20s in places.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, the southbound exit at junction 42 for the eastbound M62 is partly blocked for repairs, causing delays. In South Yorkshire, the A61 is closed along Barnsley Road at Mapplewell after an accident yesterday. Greater Manchester, the A676 is closed along Deansgate in Bolton after a fire. On the M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire, there's a lane closed southbound. Someone's broken down with a fuel spill at junction 10 for the A5 at Tamworth, with queues from junction 11 at Burton upon Trent. In Leicestershire, the A447 is closed along Ashby Road at Stapleton after an accident. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, the inside lane's closed northbound. Someone's broken down just before junction 11 at Dunstable, causing delays. On the M25 from Hertfordshire into Buckinghamshire, there's a lane closed anti-clockwise after an accident between junction 17 and 16 from Maple Cross to the M40, with queues from junction 19 at Watford. And in Devon, the A38's closed westbound, where a crane caught fire between Smithiley and the Marshmills roundabout, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 10:37 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam and Ben standing in for Bev and Andrew.
Hope you're having fun. The viewers are loving you, by the way, Miriam. All the comments are flying in. They think you're doing very well. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this picture. You may have in the bulletins with Sophia just then, but Prince George celebrates his 11th birthday today, and this new snap is certainly getting people talking. There he is. He's handsome, isn't he, Miriam?
Very. It's a beautiful picture, and a lot of mothers would very much hope that their children would go into smart clothes like that. I think he had some criticism for not wearing an England shirt. Was that right at the Euros final?
He did. When I was watching the Euros final, and I said to my wife, "Oh, doesn't George look amazing in his suit and tie?" But then I went on the cesspit that is X/Twitter, and everyone was complaining that he wasn't wearing an England shirt and he's, you know, being brought up to be stuffy and posh and whatever else. But what do you make of
Well,
that?
he is being brought up to be the king, and I think it's fair enough that he's got to get used to dressing like that at a young age, because he's going to spend his life in very formal attire, isn't he? But it is a beautiful picture.
They have released lots of the Walesers have released lots of pictures of them at the beach, you know, in shorts and shirts and sandals. So it's not.
He's got a varied wardrobe,
exactly.
definitely.
It's not as if he's like roaming around suited and booted 24 hours a day. There's a little bit of colour with that picture, a bit of detail. It says that it shows George wearing a friendship bracelet on his left wrist, but Kensington Palace declined to reveal who gave the prince the bracelet. Who knows? Can you see it on the left wrist? Yeah, just about, yeah.
It must be very hard with every move and every picture scrutinised like that growing up. I mean, he's probably oblivious to it, hopefully, but it's a difficult time to grow up in the public eye, isn't it?
That's the other side of the argument. People say, oh, how lucky and privileged these people are, but I mean, I wouldn't want to be a royal, the public attention. One last quick question. Who does he look more like, Prince William or
I can really see the Middletons in him, but I can see both. But he's a very handsome young chap, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have no luck with the ladies when he's old. Right, let's move on. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has launched his Skills England body to tackle what he calls the broken training system this morning.
And it was announced in Labour's manifesto earlier this year, and his team will work with the Migration Advisory Committee to hopefully reduce reliance on workers from overseas. But will it work in practice?
All right, political commentator Matthew Stadden joins us now. Matthew, is this music to your ears, another Labour scheme which some are saying is just replacing existing bodies?
May I just ask you, are you happy with the way I'm dressed this morning? I'm in the middle of the countryside.
You're very appropriately dressed.
Yeah, in the middle of the Welsh countryside, but still got a tie on.
Very
impressive.
This is
music to my ears. I'm sure it's music to your ears as well, because we've got huge amounts, as we know, to thank immigrants for in this country. But we should be doing far more to train up our own workforce. There are clearly holes that need to be plugged in our economy, and we need to upskill British workers. So this makes absolute sense to me. I hope that it works in practice. It's going to attempt to identify where those holes are and how they can be plugged. I'm someone who actually thinks there's a certain snobbery in our country about trades, and people mocked Starmer, didn't they, relentlessly during the campaign for mentioning more than once, it's fair to say, that his father was a toolmaker. But we need toolmakers in this country. We need people in IT, we need people in healthcare and construction, people who are highly skilled. And that's got to be a good thing that Starmer is addressing this right now. People said, didn't they, relentlessly as well, Sunak said it, the former Prime Minister, that Starmer didn't have a plan. I think it's becoming very obvious very quickly that he does have a plan. And if he can upskill our workforce and mean that we are less reliant on migration, that surely is going to be a booster for growth.
Yes, and I completely agree with you that too often these skills are seen as secondary to academic education. But isn't part of the problem that young people just aren't choosing to go into these trades and these technical training because all the focus has been on university? And to be frank, that's where all the public money is. Is that going to change under Labour?
I really hope so. I mean, I remember when Tony Blair came into power in the mid to late 1990s, having conversations, debates with friends and relatives about whether his target of getting about 50% of us into universities was a good thing or not. I think there's a huge amount to be said for people going to university, because you obviously learn a lot academically, but you also socialise yourself, you can develop a hinterland. But at the same time, that mustn't come at the expense of trades. And also, it mustn't come at the expense of respecting people who choose to go down that road. And you rightly ask, how can we encourage more people to do that? Well, I think it is partly about shedding this snobbishness, if I'm right, but also about creating proper opportunities, getting proper traineeships and apprenticeships up and running so that people really feel that that is a way forward for them.
Matthew, do you agree with me when I say that actually I think going to university these days is a detriment? I think many employers will look at somebody with 3 or 4 years work experience under their belt, or somebody who's done a lame degree at university, who's saddled with debt, maybe hasn't got a lot of exposure to life experience by that point. I mean, as far as my kids are concerned, unless they wanted to be, say, a surgeon or, you know, something skill-specific or an architect, I'd just say don't bother going to university.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's a detriment to you or that it's a disadvantage. What I would say is that, speaking for myself, I have equal amounts of respect for people who make it in life, in their chosen job, in their chosen profession, in their chosen trade, who do go to university as those who don't go to university. And that's where I'd like the emphasis to be. It doesn't have to be all about turning up at university and getting a degree. And I do think that there are some degrees which perhaps are not necessary, that people might be better off if they train rigorously in a certain trade or in a certain skill. We have so much conversation in this country about low skill and high skills. I think that every job that everyone does involves quite a lot of skill. You might be working behind a till in a shop, but you've got to do all sorts of administration there. You've got to get involved in the technology. You've got to be a good people's person. Every job has a degree of skill. Let's shed the snobbishness and encourage people to pursue their passions. And if that happens not to be going to university, that's fantastic. Did I benefit from going to university myself, Ben? Just very quickly, I studied classics, which are dead languages, ancient Greek and Latin, but it did train my mind, which enables me, I hope, to come on a show like this and debate with you.
But Matthew, one of the motivations for this skills plan is to reduce our reliance on migrant workers from abroad, which I think a lot of GB News viewers will agree with. But isn't the problem that we just don't have enough young people of our own coming into the workforce to replace those who are retiring? And in the 1960s, when current retirees were born, about 1 million people were born a year. Now we're below 700,000. How are you going to fill that gap, even if you do upskill our own young people?
Well, I think that's a really good point. We are, as we all know, an ageing population. And unless we do upskill people, and unless people continue to have children, and my wife is pregnant with our second child, then we are going to have to continue to rely in very heavy ways on immigration. Now, I don't want people who are watching, who are from immigrant backgrounds, to think that we aren't grateful for what they have done. Because, for example, in social care and the NHS, they have helped us enormously. Our NHS system is on its knees. It would be on its back were it not for the hard work of immigrants. So let's not diminish their role, but absolutely, this is all about making sure that moving forward, we can rely on our own workforce rather than having to bring people and encourage people to come in from abroad. Because if we do bring in lots and lots of people from abroad, as we have been doing, then there are questions about infrastructure. Is infrastructure keeping pace with the numbers of people coming into the country? This should be, guys, a sensible grown-up debate rather than something which is mangled by toxicity. Let's respect those people who have come into this country at the same time as upskilling our own workforce. I think that's a good combination.
OK, Matthew, thanks very much. Where are you, by the way? You're on holiday?
I'm in Paris, in mid-Wales, yeah, staying with some friends.
Oh, OK, have fun.
Thanks, guys.
I thought you said Paris.
That's what I thought you said. Paris, mid-Wales. Interesting.
New location.
It's such a fascinating debate, isn't it? Some emails have come in. Phoebe has said the reason there's a snobbery about trades is that Blair thought it was a good idea to send everyone to university. And actually, I'll admit to that. When I was at school and leaving school, I never went to university, but when I was leaving school, there was this consensus that all the lads and women who went into trades in my year, you kind of did look down on them. And it wasn't just me, it was a general consensus. It was like, OK, you're not bothering to go to college and you're just going to be a Sparky or a Chippy. But do you know the irony now? Is all those people who went into do trades, they have more money than any of us.
Yeah. And you speak to manufacturing owners and things like that, and they do find it hard to encourage young people to come into their business, even though they're going to earn more money and have less debt, because we've had this emphasis on universities for so long. And I think that's going to have to change if we're going to see those skills filled up.
The other thing about uni as well is, maybe I'm wrong, but this is just my experience of people who have gone there, especially youngsters, is that they miss out on key social benefits of being in work and being exposed to the world. For example, at my old newspaper, The Sun would get people in with qualifications and degrees coming out their ears, but they couldn't pick up the phone and speak to someone.
Make eye contact.
Yeah, make eye contact.
Arrive at work on time, those kind of things.
Knock on the door. They were just completely, they've been stuck in their phones for 4 years at university. And, yeah, it's, if you could look at someone in the eye and have a chat with them, I think that's worth far more than any degree in, media studies. Or
and it doesn't cost you any money.
No, exactly.
So we're going to break now, but up next we'll be joined by an ambitious 21-year-old who hopes to become the world's first woman to row 3,600 nautical miles solo. So this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News. And Marco has your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We're starting the new working week on a rather cloudy note with outbreaks of rain in places. That will tend to clear to sunshine and showers as we head into the afternoon. This morning we've got some heavy bursts of rain across the south of Scotland into northern parts of England. Across Northern Ireland, the rain tended to clear to give way to some sunshine through the morning, whereas the rain across the south will also move its way away towards the east, allowing skies to brighten from the west. And certainly across southern parts of the UK into the afternoon, plenty of sunshine around. Much of Wales, central and southern England should see plenty in the way of sunshine, lifting temperatures around about 24 Celsius, 75 in Fahrenheit. A few heavy showers though across northern England and southern Scotland this afternoon. Could even be a few thunderstorms here to end the day. So as we end in the afternoon then with a mixture of sunshine and showers across Scotland. Again, one or two of those showers could be on the heavy side, particularly across southern parts of the country, and two across parts of Northern Ireland into the north of England, where again we could see one or two thunderstorms as we go into the early evening on Monday. Whereas across more southern parts of the UK, much of central southern England and Wales ending the day fine. Again, plenty of sunshine around and temperatures at this stage still into the low 20s Celsius. As we head into the evening and through the overnight period on Monday, notice that the showers start to ease for a while, but we will see more showers moving in from the west, certainly across parts of England and Wales, so turning quite wet once again by Tuesday morning here. The best of the clear spells overnight into Tuesday morning reserved for the north and northwest of the UK, and here it will turn quite chilly under those clear spells by Tuesday morning. We could see temperatures down into single figures, whereas towards England and Wales, with the cloud and the showers around, temperatures hold up in the mid to high teens, so quite a humid night here. As for Tuesday, well, quite a cloudy start across England and Wales, further showery bursts of rain in places. That gradually starting to ease as we go through the day, giving way to a mix of sunshine and showers. The showers easing though from the northwest later, so Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland should end the day on quite a sunny note as a ridge of high pressure moves in from the west. Those temperatures responding to the sunshine into the low to mid 20s in places.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A new report suggests that Prince Harry is lonely in California and he's considering returning to Britain despite a seismic falling out with his father and his brother.
But the question we're asking this morning is whether Meghan would come with her Prince Charming or whether Harry would perhaps be more welcome here if he came solo.
Like Kinsey, we'll go to Kinsey Schofield live now in LA. Kinsey, we've got lots of time to talk about this and speculate this. We've got about 6 minutes or so to talk. But what's behind all of this? Where are these thoughts coming from?
They're coming from royal author Hugo Vickers, and I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Vickers, but he's written over 30 books about the British royal family. And he told The Sun that Prince Harry will ultimately return to the UK with his tail between his legs. He described the Duke of Sussex as angry and says Harry is genuinely petrified of losing his wife, Meghan Markle. When asked his predictions for where Harry and Meghan will be in the next 20 years, Vickers told The Sun, I think he'll come home, explaining, I think Harry will come home, and if he comes home, we must be very nice to him because he won't particularly want to. He's quite angry, suggesting that he would be coming home solo. Vickers also said that Prince Harry looks slightly petrified of Meghan Markle and that King Charles has left the door wide open for Harry's return if and when he does decide to come back.
I can only imagine the culture shock that Prince Harry has faced arriving there. This is a kid that has grown up in castles.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 10:53. Ben and Miriam with you on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, time for an inspiring story. Zara Lackland is a 21-year-old from Cambridge who's looking to inspire women into sport by becoming the world's first woman and the youngest ever person to row 3,600 nautical miles solo and unsupported from mainland Europe to mainland South America. And she joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I just said to you off air, you're making me feel very inferior because I can't even generate the motivation to do a 5K run, let alone row across the Atlantic. First of all, why are you doing this?
I think it'll be really fun to push myself, and also if I can inspire any woman or girl to do something that they're scared to do and keep fit, then that would be amazing.
It's clearly very dangerous. What are the main risks when you're going to be rowing across the Atlantic for such a long time on your own?
There is a pod of orcas off the coast of Portugal that like to sink boats. Some people are trying to figure out why, and they've come to the conclusion that they're teenagers and just bored.
I saw that story.
And then 20 to 30-foot waves in the ocean, pirates, and then sharks when they come into South America.
Oh, my gosh. So where are you taking off from? Where are you launching?
Portugal to French Guiana, so mainland Europe to mainland.
And it's going to take you how long, do you reckon?
75 to 90 days is the aim.
OK, I've got some very basic questions, maybe showing my ignorance here. Right, A, where are you going to sleep? How are you going to sleep?
So it's not like a boat that you see on Henley or the Olympics or anything, so it's got 2 sleeping compartments, and so one will be filled with all of my food, and then the other one will be just a mattress for me to sleep in, but I'll sleep for 4 hours a day.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Hang on, how are you meant to row across the Atlantic being knackered? Sleeping 4 hours a day?
I'll come back and I'll let you know.
But I'm interested to read that you've not actually rowed on the ocean before. When I was at university, I rowed those traditional rowing boats, and it's one thing on a river, but it must be a completely different thing in the sea. Are you going to practice first?
Yes, yeah. So I see my boat for the first time on Wednesday. So the first ocean rowing boat I ever see will be mine, which is fun. And then I start training on Wednesday, and then I go out for weeks and practice along the east coast of England.
And it's a long time to spend on your own. Are you worried about being lonely? What will your communication systems be like?
Yeah, definitely. Loads of podcasts to keep me entertained, loads of music. And also I will have connection because it's unsupported. So if something really bad does happen, I will need to let somebody know what's happened. So I will be able to send off media as well to show everybody that I'm still actually going, which would be nice.
So you're bidding to break a host of records. So let me just run through them. The youngest person to row solo and unsupported from mainland Europe to mainland South America, the first female to row mainland Europe to mainland South America solo, and the youngest female to row from any mainland to mainland across the Atlantic solo. How did you decide you wanted to do this? What was the inspiration for it?
So, actually, I've always wanted to row in the ocean, even before I knew how to row. And then I didn't think that rowing, part of it counted. So I decided to do the whole thing. And I initially wanted to go to North America, but I go to Sandhurst in May, so I don't really have time to go the further distance.
And there's your boat on screen now.
Wow. Yes.
There we are.
Yeah, doesn't look like a traditional boat.
Have you named her?
No, so I'm open to suggestions if you have any.
OK, gbnews.com/you'll say. We are fairly pushed for time, but Zara, if you're going to have an internet link in the Atlantic, we'd love for you to come back on.
Oh, amazing,
and tell us how you're
definitely.
getting on escaping those pod of pesky orcas from Portugal. And just briefly, in May 2025, what are you doing? You're going to...
Sandhurst officer training to become a technical officer in the army.
Wow. Well, safe to say the future of our armed forces is in safe hands. Zara, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. More to come in the next hour, including Labour rolling back on isolation pods, detention and so on. No discipline in schools. What could go wrong? Back in a tick.
Don't miss your chance to win our Super Summer Giveaway. With your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. Which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 866 690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. It's 11 a.m. on Monday, 22nd of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Ben Leo, and Miriam Cates, in for Andrew and Bev. Now, who will replace Joe Biden? After growing pressure about his age and health, Biden sensationally dropped out of the presidential race last night. Mark White has more.
Well, the smart money is on the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who has already been endorsed by Joe Biden and has 500 other members of the Democratic Party now supporting her.
So who's next in line? Well, top Democrats are backing Kamala Harris. Bill and Hillary Clinton have thrown their weight behind Kamala, but former President Barack Obama has kept quiet so far.
And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday this morning. And for those on radio, it's a black and white picture of him dressed in a smart suit and an open-necked white shirt and looking very handsome.
Looking dapper indeed.
And disruption and delays. After Friday's global tech meltdown, there are warnings of flight cancellations and difficulties seeing your GP. So let us know on GB News if you've been impacted.
Prince George also, who's wearing a bracelet on his left wrist, which is a friendship bracelet. But interestingly, Kensington Palace won't reveal who it's from. Maybe the King, maybe Uncle Andrew, who knows? Elsewhere, what's coming up in this hour?
Well, we're going to be focusing on Labour's new plans for discipline in schools. They're claiming that there are too many suspensions and exclusions. But will cutting down on those mean that in the classroom it's just too difficult to control, too difficult to educate children?
Sounds like chaos. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. We'll read them out as soon as we can. But first, before all that, rather, Sophia Wensler has your news headlines.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sophia Wensler. Your top story from the GB Newsroom. It's just gone 11 o'clock. President Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris after announcing he's standing down from the US presidential race. The Prime Minister has praised Mr Biden for making a decision based on what he believed to be in the best interest of the American people. The 81-year-old had faced increasing calls to step aside since a faltering debate performance against Republican Donald Trump last month. The news comes just 4 months before Americans go to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Kamala Harris says she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in her power to defeat Donald Trump. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined Mr. Biden in throwing their support behind her. A whole host of A-list celebrities have also backed her, but former President Barack Obama has stopped short of endorsing Kamala Harris. Democratic strategist Spencer Critchley says he's not surprised.
He's aware that his endorsement carries a great deal of weight, and he's always been reluctant, since that's been the case, to endorse any Democratic candidate before something like a primary contest has been settled, because he doesn't want to be in the position, I don't believe, of having endorsed one candidate, say, and then having another one be chosen and diluting the impact of his endorsement and potentially sowing some division within the party.
Meanwhile, former US President Donald Trump, who's standing for the Republican Party, has responded to the news. Writing on his Truth Social platform, he said Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was. He also said, "We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we'll remedy the damage he's done very quickly." Trump has called Biden the worst president in US history. Back in the UK, the Prime Minister has set out plans to cut reliance on foreign workers by improving skills training in England. Skills England was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix the fragmented and broken training systems. In a speech today, Sir Keir Starmer argued that a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could slash the number of apprenticeships on offer. Speaking a short while ago, the Prime Minister laid out his plans.
Another marker of the future, with the launch of a new organisation that we hope will transform not just how we train our young people and adults, but also the relationship between business and your education system. A plan to make sure that we're training young people not just for any business, but for the businesses that exist in their communities, the skills that you and they need to take each other forward.
Meanwhile, the Conservative leadership race is gathering pace, with Shadow and Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride the latest Tory to hint at a run at the top job. Speaking to GB News earlier, he was asked whether he would stand.
I haven't ruled that out and I haven't ruled it in. We don't yet know what the contest holds. The party board is going to come forward shortly, I think, with the process, and I will finally take a decision at that time. Some colleagues have been speaking to me about that possibility, and it's something that I'm weighing up.
In other news, a 15-year-old boy has died after being shot in a park in West London. The Metropolitan Police were called to the location near Hazelwood Crescent in Ladbroke Grove last night. The teenage boy was found with injuries and pronounced dead at the scene. Police said 6 men have now been arrested on suspicion of murder and remain in custody. Normal levels of service at GP surgeries will take some time to return after Friday's global IT outage. The British Medical Association is warning GPs need time to catch up on lost work over the weekend after the tech glitch knocked a computer system used by doctors offline. The problems with the faulty security software CrowdStrike affected more than 8 million computers worldwide, bringing chaos to transport networks and health services. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday. The image was taken by his mother, Princess Catherine, and posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. The black and white shot shows the future king smiling, wearing a white shirt and a dark blazer. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome back. It's 11:07. You're with Ben and Miriam Cates this morning and for the rest of the week on Britain's Newsroom. So, what are you doing here, some would ask?
Well, I'm on my third or fourth career, I think. So, as many of your viewers will know, I was an MP until a few weeks ago. And before that, I was a teacher and a stay-at-home mum. So I'm trying my own apprenticeship today. So very much looking forward to commentating on what's going on and also using some of the knowledge and skills I've picked up over the last few years, particularly around families and children and standing up for kids.
I said before, you're quite unique as a former politician because you didn't just start at, say, a think tank or go to university and study politics and then go and work for an MP. You've got a vast background. I mean, you went to university to study, what, genetics?
Yeah, that's right.
And you are a stay-at-home mum. You've got 3 kids?
Yes, that's right,
So as you said, you've got a wealth of life experience, which arguably lots of your previous cohorts don't have.
Yes, that's true, and I think a lot of people do come into politics through the kind of think tank or journalism route, and there are advantages to that, but I think also having a wider experience of life before and now after politics is probably a good thing. So looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Can I ask what happened with your seat and election night? Were you gutted to lose?
Yes, I was
initially
at Penistone and Stocksbridge, which is in South Yorkshire. So I was born and bred in Sheffield, lived there all my life. But like so many of my colleagues, the Reform Party split the vote to completely understand why people voted for Reform. But, you know, that's the nature of politics, isn't it? I kind of got in accidentally and now I'm out.
So Reform split, I think you got, what, something like, how many votes? 11,000?
11,000,
and
something
Reform
like that.
got 9. So you would have won if Reform weren't there.
Potentially.
Do you have any sort of ill feeling towards, say, Nigel or any of the Reform boys?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, it's personally challenging for me and my former colleagues, but I think that Reform have performed a really, really important function in British politics, which is that neither of the mainstream parties really represented people's views on things like immigration. And so it's a democracy. We need those people to be represented. So what's happened has happened.
Well, you were a great MP and the viewers love you, but secretly I'm happy you lost because it means that you're here with us on GBNews. So
thank you, Ben. It's great to be here.
That. Right, let's move on. Prince George is celebrating his 11th birthday today, and there's a great new picture of him to boot. Let's have a quick look. Can we get it up? There he is.
This image was taken by his mother, Princess Catherine, who's a very good photographer, and it's been posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. It's a black and white shot, for those of you listening on radio, which shows our future king smiling and wearing a white shirt and a dark blazer. He looks very, very handsome, and you were saying earlier, do you think he's used to wearing this formal attire? Would he prefer to be in an England shirt and shorts?
Well, yeah, I saw him in the Royal Box at the Euros final when England played... Oh, gosh, who did we play in the final?
Spain?
Spain, yeah. You know more than me. I'm meant to be a football fan. So lots of people online saying, why can't he just wear an England shirt and enjoy the moment like a normal person? But, actually, I mean, he was in the Royal Box, so you need to be suited and booted for that anyway. And I've seen loads of pictures of him at the beach with his dad and his mum down in Norfolk and, you know, in shorts and...
Yeah, exactly. But the royal family are supposed to be set apart. We would be very disappointed if they looked like the rest of us, wouldn't they? That's part of their appeal, is to be more formal, more representative, all those kind of things. So I think Princess Catherine's done well to get him into a seat.
Yeah, standards are slipping all across Britain. Don't start trying to get George wearing dungarees and shorts and T-shirts when he should be wearing a suit. Exactly. OK, let's move on. Labour, they look set to soften measures designed to tackle bad behaviour in classrooms. Yeah, talking of slipping standards.
And it could see the end of isolation booths, suspensions and some of the stricter behaviour rules.
So what impact will this have on the classroom? We're joined now by political commentator Jess Gill. Morning, Jess.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. This sounds like absolute chaos. If we thought standards were bad already in state schools... I mean, I remember when I was there in a state school, I'm 34 now, back when I was 15, 16, I learnt nothing because there was so much chaos and troublemakers and, you know, class clowns taking all the attention and hogging the teachers. Now they just want to get rid of any kind of punishment for these people and, I mean, what kind of effect will it have on kids who do want to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea that schools are strict to begin with is an absolute joke. I was at school only a few years back, 5 years ago, and I remember we couldn't even get the learning objective down because they were throwing dictionaries, throwing rulers, just talking over the teacher, and nothing could stop them. And my teacher tried to bribe the kids with donuts, and they just ended up stealing the donuts. So the idea that we need to be soft on kids, students who are misbehaving, isn't correct. I do agree that we have to focus on the real reason, although I don't think Labour is actually going to address the real reason, which is broken families, which is bad parents not taking responsibility over their children. The fact that I think it's like 1 in 5 children, 1 in 5 11-year-olds are overweight is an absolute joke. Children should be out and about, they should be active, they should be eating healthily, and I think that's an indicator that as a society we're not prioritising children.
And isn't this the problem, that although of course teachers have a responsibility in the classroom to maintain discipline. If a child arrives at 5 or 11 or 15 not understanding how to obey rules or not knowing what the consequences are for not obeying those rules, is there anything the teacher can really do in those circumstances?
Well, no, what is the teacher meant to do? There is absolutely nothing. Isolation was the only thing stopping them from disrupting the class the whole time. They'd actually listen to this, like, non-teacher pastoral person. At my school we had a whole floor dedicated to misbehaving children. The issue was that bad, and it punishes children who actually behave. That's the actual thing that stops well-behaving, prospering children in state schools from going ahead. It is the misbehaving classrooms. In all honesty, not to get too personal, but I had family issues at home. I was sofa surfing during my GCSEs. It wasn't the stuff at home that disrupted me. It was the fact that I couldn't study maths because the class wasn't happening. And that was the biggest barrier towards it.
And when you combine this with the fact that Labour have got this new VAT on private school kids, arguably thousands, tens of thousands of private school children are now going to be dumped into state schools, I feel even more sorry for those kids who are, their parents were trying to get them a decent education, and now they're going to be lumped into state schools where Labour is rolling back any suggestion of discipline whatsoever.
Again, this is the idea of equality which Labour wants to push. It's not about everyone getting to this level, getting really high. It's the fact that there are misbehaving kids who they want to get to that level, and in reality, there are going to be barriers to that. And instead of focusing on the successful kids, the good kids who behave, the good kids who want to go further, who want to go to these top universities, instead of pushing them, they're just focusing on the naughty kids, which is obviously a big thing. We do need to prioritise kids with learning disabilities, kids who have problems at home, but not at the expense of good kids.
Well, what Labour seem to be saying is that there's been this spike in suspensions and exclusions. But actually, if you look at the data, since 2016, it's only gone up something like 0.01%. Of course, there was a dip down in COVID because nobody was at school. But do you really think there's been this increase, or is this just an excuse to get rid of some of the Conservatives' ideas around standards in schools?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised, but in all honesty, I wouldn't be shocked if COVID had if lockdown had a massive impact on children behaving. I doom scroll on TikTok all day, and the amount of videos of teachers stressing out that they can't control the classroom, that's just got even worse after lockdown because they haven't had these social skills. So I wouldn't be surprised if that did have an impact.
OK, Jess Gill, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, goodness me, I dread to think what it's going to be like when my boys finally get to sort of high school age. Quick question, Jess. Do you like cheese? What's your favourite cheese?
Cheddar.
Cheddar. Apparently...
It's very British.
Very British, yeah. Sticking with the... got the memo there. Apparently, Miriam, Brits are adding stinky cheeses to their plates en masse.
Well, I think I'm responsible for this. I love Stilton, Gorgonzola, anything like that. Yeah, the stinkier the better.
Oh, gosh. It's literal mould, though, isn't it?
It is literal mould. It doesn't hurt you, but it is actual mould. Yeah, that's what gives it the very pungent smell.
I think I'll stick with Jess. I like a bit of cheddar or a bit of Edam. Let's go Dutch.
Edam's very bland, yeah.
All right, anyway, well, let us know what you think, gbnews.com/your say. Stinky cheese or mild cheddar? Let us know. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Back in a tick.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War, restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 past 11 and this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ben Leo and Miriam Cates standing in for Andrew and Bev. And joining us now in the newsroom for our news review, we've got Matthew Larzer and Emma Wolfe to discuss today's story. So, Matthew, we've been talking about the Labour plans for education and discipline in schools. What's your reaction to this idea that we might be ending suspensions or exclusions?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think it needs to be seen in the context that this isn't Labour saying that suspensions and discipline don't matter. It's Labour just saying that this particular route hasn't been successful, and actually we need to try other things, because obviously discipline in schools is hugely important. Children can't learn if it's a disruptive environment.
I mean, this is a joke, isn't it?
It is a joke. I'm sorry. I'm one of those old-fashioned mothers who likes lots of discipline. I've just chosen a school for my little toddler, which has uniform, and I want absolutely...
I'm very in favour of uniform.
I'm very in favour of uniform. I want standards in schools. But, you know, parents differ on this and teachers differ on this. It's an individual choice, but I think that discipline really, really matters. But from everything, from kind of getting up in the morning, going to work, that kind of making your bed, you know, kind of cooking healthy food, that kind of... It starts at home, you know, brushing your teeth, just having basic standards. Many people are very laissez-faire. You have to respect other people's choices, but it disrupts children in schools if discipline is just you know, kind of just let go.
So, a question for all of you, I guess. Where have we gone wrong? Where did standards start slipping? Why is it so accepted?
It's a good question. Yeah.
Well, to me, it does... I know we go on about social media, but to me, it really has been a marked decline over the past sort of probably 10 years, I would say. This feeling that you can be anonymous, that you can say what you want to whoever you want, that there's no sort of accountability, there are no responsibilities. I don't know. I think something around that.
Do you think parenting has changed as well? Because certainly 1 or 2 generations ago, parents would always back up the teacher.
Yes,
if you got told off at school, if you got disciplined, even if it was unfair, your parents would back up the authority of the school. It's completely changed now.
That's what teachers say is the biggest challenge now, isn't it? Is that parents don't back them up. I mean, obviously some parents do, but increasing numbers don't, and that causes huge problems because that weakens the authority of the school.
But there's something about the authority of adults that we've lost. You know, the idea that, you know, my parents certainly would have said to someone on a bus, don't put your feet on the seat, don't play your music out loud, don't, you know, run around with knives and guns and whatever. Now we seem to be terrified of challenging young people.
A guy was attacked on a London bus just a couple of weeks ago for asking somebody to take their feet off the seat. My mum used to do it all the time. I'm glad she's not here to get into trouble, in a sense.
I don't want to bring everything back, you know, to the... I hate the word now, woke, but...
it is something to do with the woke agenda,
there is, like, a distinct lack of authority for, say, the police, which I think it trickles down. When the police police are running around doing the YMCA at Pride and painting their cars in rainbow flags, criminals don't respect the police anymore.
I mean, we can debate, but I think with schools, it's more now that children are now absolutely in cotton wool. Children can now do no wrong. Little Johnny or little Jemima, literally everything they do, whether it's knocking somebody out, you know, with those My Bête Noire, which are the little sort of scooter things that they sort of block all our pavements and knock poor pensioners down. You know, they literally cannot do. They never get told off, and everything they do is right.
And if they do misbehave, there's always an excuse rather than just they need to follow the consequences.
Yeah.
And isn't it just that now we base our society on rights, so children have rights rather than responsibility, which is what previous generations would have looked.
Exactly. My 3-year-old's coming back lecturing me about human rights, and I completely know, and it sounds awful.
Where are they learning that from?
At nursery.
Yeah.
They literally are learning UN human rights, and I hate to be a horrible parent, but I say to my child, hang on a minute.
Well, yeah.
You're a child.
Do you not
Let's learn basic manners first and ways of behaving.
If I tell him off, he'll say, but you're not my best friend. No, I'm not your best friend, I'm your mother. And I think the children are, from a very, very early age, being filled with all this stuff about rights, which is good. No, it's a response to the fact that children used to be abused. Children used to be...
Well, children still are abused, sadly. And a child can either have rights or they can be protected. You can't have
Exactly. And we've lost that authority. We've lost that moral authority to say, actually, this is the way it is.
Before we move on, do you not ever go to the nursery and the staff and say, why the hell are you teaching my child about...
Not when the head teacher's doing...
or human rights?
No, it is worrying. And not when... You can't do that when the head teacher is using pronouns.
Oh, are they really?
I know!
Oh, don't name them. Goodness me. I'd have my kids straight out of there. Right, let's move on. Brits are enjoying stinkier cheese. Matthew...
So look, this is actually shock news. This is a big story today. So the British love affair with cheddar and red Leicester, which is what most shoppers put in their trolleys. And now, I mean, finally, the obsession with those homegrown hard cheeses may be on the wane, because experts say that British shoppers are putting increasing numbers of, quote, stinkier and softer cheeses into their supermarket trolleys. So the British cheesemakers are fighting back. They're taking on the French at their own game, and brie sales were up year on year. So one British cheesemaker has come up with a Baron... let me get this right, because it's Baron Bigod brie.
Hang on, this is a British brie.
This is a British brie. It's not easy to say Baron Bigod brie. And so... but also, it's not just the French cheeses that need to take on. We need to be seeing British feta, because sales are up 23% for feta and halloumi, and burrata, and I think halloumi's up 17%. So it's such a big story. The Times leader, the Times editorial, is on Britain's stinking cheese today.
Do you think this is a result of Brits travelling more, experiencing more foods? Because certainly when I was a child, these cheeses just weren't available on the supermarket.
Well, cheddar was but Cheshire or Lancashire was a bit, rather than your cheddar, it was a bit exotic,
Red
wasn't it?
Leicester was quite
absolutely.
exotic.
Red Leicester absolutely was also a bit exotic. So I think it's travelling more, and it's also... maybe the street food epidemic has something to do with it. Everything's about street food, pop-up stalls, isn't it? And you often have things like halloumi fries and things in there. They use cheese a lot, because that's easier to use.
I'm sorry, my family are Greek. They're from Lesvos, where a lot of feta is made. I don't think I can stomach the idea of a British-made halloumi or feta, surely.
Although, I did a story the other day about how retro foods are coming back for the TikTok generation. So they're all about roly-poly pudding...
Angel Delight.
Spotted dick, Angel Delight, Toad in the Hole. And so it is interesting to think that, like, our parents' generation didn't know about pasta, like, they didn't eat spaghetti and pasta. And so we have got really, really...
There's a vegan Toad in the Hole now.
Curry, all of that kind of thing. You know, bananas were unknown of in the war, you know, in the Second World War. People were sort of like, what's this, a pineapple?
Well, tinned fruit. Do you remember when tinned fruit and ice cream was it was a major treat? And then there was that stuff in the 80s that you put on top of ice cream. I think it was called Ice Magic.
Ice Magic,
which I think is
set
solid. And it had to be withdrawn from sale. No, I may be wrong, but I think certainly they had to change it as a consequence of laws.
I remember Angel. I don't know about this setting solid.
I had some last week.
I had Angel Delight as a child, as a real treat. But we called it blancmange because we weren't posh enough. But Angel Delight was really good.
Butterscotch, best flavour. Talking of ice creams, one child in 10 has never been to the seaside. Matthew Larzer.
Well, this is a shocking story, and actually it's a very depressing story, because obviously experiencing different parts of your country, and particularly the fun that we all know the seaside can bring, although the British weather over the last, the last 10 days has been all right, but the 6 weeks before that weren't so good. So I think one of this is the sad consequence of the decline of both some government services, like youth clubs. We saw the youth clubs and youth services have been hollowed out. but also it's going to decline as civil society, because it used to be that church groups would take a shower off to the seaside and give kids their first taste from inner-city areas. So I think it's quite depressing that as many as 1 in 10 British kids have never seen the sea.
That's a very good point about the decline of civil society, and I also think that school trips have declined because of risk assessments and poor behaviour. Fewer schools will take children on trips as well.
I mean, so, you know, I saw a school trip on the bus in London because, you know, the other day, and they all have to now wear a sort of high-vis sash, which is they're not going walking down a dark country lane. This is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in central London. So, I mean, I think, you know, it's about common sense not getting in the way of people having necessary experiences and growing up.
Let's take the litmus test. Emma, have you taken your kids to the seaside?
I've taken my little boy to the seaside. In lockdown, I took him to the south of France for a year because this country was such a disaster, and we lived on the beach in Nice.
That's taking
but we have to remember, lots of people don't have a car. Lots of people live in inner-city London. We don't all live on the beach like Ben Leo. I do think it's a real shame, but trains are expensive. It's hard. And also, can we also mention the disgusting water pollution in this country, which is an absolute scandal. The state of our beaches.
I mean, we measure it more. It's not actually true that the water quality has declined. It's just that we now measure every single outlet, which we didn't before. So anyway, that's another story.
We still don't want to be swimming in
Our beaches are much cleaner than they've ever been.
We still don't.
Is that true?
Beaches are pretty crowded and pretty dirty, and we don't want to be swimming in human waste.
The amount of times I've taken the boys down to the beach for a swim, and I can't because there's a sewage warning, just pumping raw sewage into the
it's
water.
certainly true that we, like all European countries, do have to pump out sewage when there's excess rainfall. That's the function of our Victorian sewers. But it's also true that many of our beaches and rivers are cleaner than they've ever been. It's just that we monitor them now, whereas the previous Labour government didn't. So it's a very complex story, and not all the headlines you read are true.
Matthew, when was the last time you went to the seaside?
Well, I might go on Friday. A friend's got a house in Margate. I might be going on Friday.
Margate?
Yeah, which is all full of DFLs, down for
Hackney by the sea.
as they call it, Hackney by the sea. So yes, one of the reasons that people from the inner city get to the seaside, it looks just like it's just full of coffee shops and people with hipster beards now.
Yeah, it's
happening.
art
galleries.
Exactly.
It's happened right
Tracy M, in effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Worthing's the new Brighton.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you both. A very quick word on Joe Biden. He's quit the race, obviously. Who's going to replace him?
I think it will be Kamala Harris. I'm going to spend the entire presidential campaign worrying I'm going to get her saying her name wrongly. She's only 3 points behind in the polls. I think it's a proper contest now. It clearly was unsustainable before. Yeah.
Really? No, I think Trump will be laughing. I think I'll be absolutely laughing. If I was a Democrat right now, I would be asking how and why this has been so badly bungled. It could have been a dignified, smooth handover months ago. This is absolutely shocking.
I think it's down to Biden himself.
The fact that they knew about this, that it was covered up, and the family and the people around him.
But thank God Joe Biden has persuaded him to stand down because, at least whatever side you want to go on, at least wanted a proper contest, and it clearly was. It was just so unfortunate. Just watching him was painful. You felt for the fellow, didn't you?
And Matthew, does he carry on now? If he's not fit to run, does he carry on? The man with the nuclear codes until January.
He's not fit to serve for another 4 years because he thinks he will be too old. But at the end of the 4 years, he doesn't think he'll be too old at the end.
But he's fine for the next 6 months.
OK. Yeah. It raises grave questions about why the Democrats have covered this up for the past couple of years. I mean, if you ask me, they need to answer some serious questions. But anyway, thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Emma Wolf. Sophia Wensler is on standby with your news headlines. Back in a tick.
Ben, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines. Donations to the US Democratic Party have surged after President Joe Biden announced he's standing down from the US presidential race. The Prime Minister has praised Mr. Biden for making a decision based on what he believed to be in the best interest of the American people. The 81-year-old has endorsed Kamala Harris as Democrat candidate. It comes after the US president faced increasing calls to step aside since a faltering debate performance against Republican Donald Trump last month. And the news comes just 4 months before Americans go to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Kamala Harris says she intends to earn and win the nomination and do everything in her power to defeat Donald Trump. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined Mr. Biden in throwing their support behind her. A whole host of A-list celebrities have also backed her, but former President Barack Obama has stopped short of endorsing her. Back in the UK, the Prime Minister has set out plans to cut reliance on foreign workers by improving skills training in England. Skills England was a manifesto pledge from Labour and is designed to fix the fragmented and broken training systems. In a speech today, Sir Keir Starmer argued that a new approach is needed to reduce the need for immigration in key sectors. But the Conservatives have warned that the plans to redirect cash could slash the number of apprenticeships on offer. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared a new photo of Prince George to mark his 11th birthday. The image was taken by his mother, Princess Catherine, and posted on Kensington Palace's social media accounts. The black and white shot shows the future king smiling, wearing a white shirt and a dark blazer. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2928 and €1.1875. The price of gold is £1,859 and 27 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,218 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sophia. Up at noon is Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. Good morning to you both.
Good morning for now. Good morning for now. Good afternoon in a little bit. Yes, could Keir Starmer be facing quite a rebellion over this child benefit, the two-child cap on those benefits? It does look like an increasing number of Labour MPs are very angry indeed. And, of course, there's that King's Speech debate today. They'll be putting their amendment on this. One Labour MP, Rosie Duffield, called it a form of social cleansing. She went as far as to call it that. So could Keir Starmer actually buckle a little bit under this pressure? We shall see.
And if the Labour amendment isn't selected, there's an SNP amendment on the same issue as well. It's really going to come to a crux in the House of Commons. But the Labour Party isn't alien to the word U-turn. In fact, just this morning we've learnt of a particularly bizarre U-turn. If you remember, 2 years ago, the government proposed getting rid of some of these old EU laws that were stopping house building on environmental grounds. Initially, it seemed like the Labour Party was going to back them on this, and then they U-turned on that initial idea and blocked it in the Lords. Well, they've U-turned again. I don't know if that's an O-turn or how on earth you're supposed to describe that.
There's a circle.
But now they're in power, they're going to do exactly the same reform that the Tories tried to do that Labour blocked in the Lords.
But they'll have an eye on the next election. In 5 years' time, they're going to be judged on how many houses they've built, not on whether they've U-turned on previous Conservative policy. And isn't it the case that whatever people say now, that's what they've got their eyes on?
I think it shows just how cynical and perhaps how good at politics they've been over the last 12 months. In the election, they say, oh, we've really got to care about the environment. The nasty Tories want to get rid of all of our green fields. And then as soon as they're in government, they realise, actually, the policy that the Tories were pursuing is probably the right one. We're going to do it and forget what we said in the election.
But isn't it interesting? There's been quite a few nasty headlines from the Labour, you know, Yvette Cooper and her illegal migrant raids. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that people were saying Theresa May was evil for hostile environment for illegal migrants. It seems like these policies that could sound harsh are actually, when they're packaged in the Labour bow, fine.
As long as Labour do it, it's fine. You know, yes, one rule for them, one rule for another. Before I let you go, cheese. Stinky cheese, yes or no, Tom?
Oh, big yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely, yes.
Although I prefer my cheese if it is rolling at about 100 miles an hour down a hill in the West Country, as we covered on this programme a few months ago.
Live streamed.
The annual cheese roll is a marvellous, marvellous tradition in this country, and the stinkier the better.
I think we need some tasting in the studio. Thank you so much, Tom and Emily, and looking forward to hearing more from you later. All that and more at midday. Up next, Joe Biden has pulled out of the presidential race, and we'll have the latest on who is in the running to replace him. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. There will be some showery rain still to come as we go through today, but for some of us it will be turning brighter. That's because the system that's bringing a lot of the cloudy wet weather is gradually clearing away towards the east and northeast. That being said, there will still be some outbreaks of showery rain across central eastern parts of England for a time this afternoon, and also across parts of northern England and Scotland. Quite a bit of rain still to come here, and that that rain is going to break up a little bit, becoming a bit more showery perhaps, but it's further south and west where we're going to see the best chance of anything dry and brighter developing. And with that, temperatures up a little bit compared to yesterday, generally highs ranging in the high teens to low to mid-20s. As we go into this evening, and still some showery rain across parts of Scotland in particular, some hefty showers are quite likely, could even be some rumbles of thunder too, but also some bright or sunny spells possible. Also some heavy showers across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England too. I think further south across more central southern parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a drier picture, a few showery bursts perhaps, but also some breaks in the cloud leading to a bit of late sunshine. However, across Cornwall there will be a bit more persistent rain starting to push its way in, and as we go overnight we are going to see more wet weather feeding its way eastwards across parts of England and Wales. Further east, holding on to something a little bit drier and some clear skies here, and also across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, most of the showers easing overnight and also some clear spells. But temperatures not dropping a huge amount. It is going to be another relatively warm night for most of us. Could be some early heavy rain across some parts of central eastern England first thing tomorrow morning, but that should clear away towards the east, and then thereafter just a few scattered showers around. It is looking like a drier and brighter day than today for many of us. A good chance of seeing some sunshine breaking through, and temperatures a little bit higher than today, and so feeling a bit warmer as well. Bye-bye.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
It's 11:40 and this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ben Leo and Miriam Cates standing in for Andrew and Bev.
Now, Joe Biden, across the pond, he's announced he will not stand as the Democratic candidate in the US presidential election this year. He's been under mounting pressure, of course, after concerns over his health, after a poor debate performance and several political gaffes. He has endorsed his Vice President, Kamala Harris, to run instead. We're joined now in the studio by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, what's the latest? Is it going to be Kamala on the ticket, or is any other names who are kind of making their way in there?
Well, the smart money is certainly on Kamala Harris. You've got Joe Biden himself within half an hour of announcing that he would not be seeking re-election, then endorsing her. That was followed by the Clintons, 500 other senior Democrats and not so senior Democrats who have now also endorsed her. No Barack Obama as yet, but that may follow in the days and weeks ahead. It would be a lot less messy to just have Kamala Harris assume the mantle and become the nominee for the Democrats going forward. An open primary, as I say, could be a bit on the messy side.
And the Republicans must be rejoicing. I mean, Kamala Harris's record on immigration, she's seen as very soft on immigration, she's seen as a poor public speaker. They must be delighted that now she is the person to beat.
Yeah, well, one of the first tasks that was given to Kamala Harris when she became VP was to try to help sort out the crisis on the southern border. And not only has that not been sorted out, it has grown enormously to the point where tens of thousands have become hundreds of thousands, have become millions who've poured over that border. So that is a big weakness that Donald Trump and his campaign will certainly choose to try to exploit going forward. But it's going to be really interesting, isn't it, to see if this debate, and it's not guaranteed, but if this presidential debate does go ahead in September, it was supposed to be Trump-Biden, and it becomes Kamala Harris and Trump instead, just how she performs because she gave some pretty weak performances in some of the debates leading up to 2020 when she pulled out, of course, before the primaries. But this time around, she would have the full might of the Democratic Party machine behind her, all the advisors. You would think that she would be in a much better place to perform quite strongly. So that could, you know, in the same way as it's been for Joe Biden, it could be a make or break for her going forward.
One point I hadn't thought too much about was that we're getting a new Democratic nominee, but we'll also need a new Vice President nominee as well to run the ticket with them. So if it is Kamala Harris, who may the VP be?
Well, a very good point. And interestingly, some key potential candidates have already come forward to endorse Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee. Chief among them, Josh Shapiro, governor in Pennsylvania. You remember he acquitted himself very well after the attempted assassination on Donald Trump with his words of condemnation and support for the ex-president going forward. So that's, of course, a swing state, Pennsylvania. So she could do worse than getting Josh Shapiro on board. Another is Mark Kelly, a war hero and, of course, former NASA astronaut. His wife is Gabby Giffords, who was, again, the subject of an assassination attempt herself and, you know, very badly injured and traumatised after that, no longer in Congress. But Mark Kelly, has laid his support behind Kamala Harris as well. And Mark Kelly is Nevada. He's Nevada senator, another swing state, so that could be a potential pick for her.
It's very late in the day, though, isn't it, for these people to get name recognition, to get their campaign platforms in order? Is it just too late to start up a campaign now? Well,
this is a difficulty, and this is why Kamala Harris is a better fit, because as a VP, she's better known than some of the others, like Gavin Newsom, for instance, who has also come out, by the way, and endorsed Kamala Harris, so he is not clearly going to be putting his hat in the ring. But yes, that's the great difficulty about it. And I think there's a lot of anger within the Democratic Party about why Joe Biden left it so late, why he didn't decide he couldn't go forward 4 months ago or a year ago, knowing that there was this cognitive and health decline. But they must have known about that. We knew about that. Everybody has been able to see this. It's clear for anyone who watches these matters to see just how he was declining.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've said they need to answer some questions because it appears they've just been lying to the American public for the best part of a year or so. Mark White, thanks very much. Appreciate it. If you're not too sure who Kamala Harris is, here's a flavour of what she's about.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
There we go. Pronouns, she, her. My name's Kamala Harris. I'm wearing a blue suit and so on and so on. So, yeah.
Well,
Could
it's
be your
just
next
the
president.
state of our politics right now, isn't it? Left and right, not traditional split anymore. It's much more about identity politics.
Yeah, interesting. All right, up next, we're crossing over to the Farnborough Air Show, where military plane makers have taken a more central role this year. This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Back in a tick.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision. to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former royal butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster, Laurie Turner. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Laurie, I will start with you. I mean, the mother didn't want Harry to have it, but he did it anyway. What do you think?
I just think it's incredibly tone deaf. He seems to have an amazing ability to not read the room. It wasn't like this was a surprise because the opposition to him getting this award had been growing. So he had the chance to say, actually, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to accept the award, but he didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there. This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 11:48. You're with Ben and Miriam Cates on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Some emails flying in, Miriam. Sharon, you say, good morning, Sharon. I do wish the new Labour government would stop trash-talking this country. Honestly, the "we got here just in time" rhetoric is boorish.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think political commentators generally are guilty of that. We're often talking about how terrible the country is, and you can go on Twitter and see videos of how terrible the country is, and of course we have challenges. There's some great things about this country too, and the world, and we've got the Farnborough Air Show today. We've got one of the biggest aerospace manufacturing sectors in the world, £60 billion in our economy, so some great things about this country too.
Really? 60 billion?
Yeah.
So who's that? Is that Boeing?
Yes,
Rolls-Royce?
And lots of smaller manufacturers, steel and things like that, feeding into the bigger manufacturers. But I think it supports around 1 million jobs, both directly and indirectly.
OK, well, on that note, nice segue, Miriam. The Farnborough International Air Show, as you said, it's in full force. Giants of the aerospace industry have gathered in Hampshire for an exhibition of aircraft and equipment. And our national reporter, Charlie Peters, is there now. Good morning, Charlie. What's going on?
Hi, Ben. Well, behind me you can see a significant collection of military aircraft. For the first time since the fall of the Berlin Wall, the military are taking centre stage here at the Farnborough International Air Show. Some 40% of the static displays of aircraft on the ground here are for military purposes. Boeing haven't even sent an airliner along to this year's event. They've sent 2 F-15 fighter jets, one of them in so-called dirty condition with weapons on board. And that comes, of course, as we're experiencing those significant flashpoints in Eastern Europe, in the South China Sea and across the Middle East. So the military really taking a centre stage in this year's air show. And as that all goes on, the new government has ordered a strategic defence review, and a core part of that will be how Britain's air power is ready for the next generation of combat. We have this programme that's been linked with the Japanese and the Italians called Tempest. It's £12 billion has gone into it so far. They've revealed a concept for it just on Friday. It's going to be the next generation of fighter jets, but the government is fighting reports that it could be cutting this programme, could be cutting the Global Combat Air Programme due to the competing cost pressures. It's understood that the Army wants to prioritise spending on its modernisation programme, but of course, as you can imagine, the Royal Air Force really keen for this programme to stay alive. Well, earlier today, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer was speaking here about his skills plan. There was a question from the audience about whether or not he could commit to the Tempest Air programme.
It is an important programme, and I know that people in the room will want to hear me say that. It's a programme on which we're making significant progress, in my view, and the Defence Secretary is holding a ministerial level meeting, I think, next week in relation to this, because of the significant benefits here in this country. So that's my attitude to it. There is, of course, a review going on, but it's important for me to put on record just how important a programme this is.
It's not entirely clear just how reassuring that will be to industry insiders here, who are no doubt listening in very closely for the Prime Minister's comments there. This programme, they say, is key. Aerospace observers and those in the military air world have been pointing that this new Tempest programme has a wider wingspan and could carry significantly more fuel and weapons. If you think about the recent air activity that the Royal Air Force has been involved with, we've seen fighter jets leaving Cyprus to strike targets in Yemen, but needing to be refueled on the way because the Eurofighter Typhoon isn't able to get there and back and do the job in one go. So many people in the Royal Air Force and indeed observers reckon that this Tempest new generation fighter jet has to be the future for the air programme. But of course, that's facing significant cost pressures.
OK, Charlie Peters down at the Farnborough Air Show. Thanks very much. Not jealous of your gig at all, being an aviation buff. I was born in Shoreham, where, of course, the air show disaster of, well, what year was it? I can't remember. Big tragedy, plane hit the ground. I think it was a Hurricane fighter. I thought air shows were banned now, or is it just the flying over crowds?
Yes, I think there are some restrictions, but they're amazing spectacles, aren't they? And my dad's a huge fan of these, been to a lot. But they're not just fun, are they? Of course, our aviation sector is so important to us financially. It's a booming sector, so it's a bit of a parade as well for the manufacturers, isn't it?
I think so. I've been told by the gods of my ear that it was 2015, this Shoreham Air Show disaster. Miriam, we're almost out of time, coming up to your first day with GB News. And we've had some emails. Malcolm says, Miriam looks a natural this morning, 10 out of 10. Mark says, I just want to congratulate Miriam Cates on her first live show for GB News. Brilliant. And Trevor says, great to see Miriam. Obviously, she's very comfortable and well-suited in front of the camera.
Oh, well, you've obviously done a very good job on my induction, Ben, so thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, you can slip me the £5 after the show. Yeah, we'll be back for the rest of the week. So Bev and Andrew are enjoying their holidays. I think, not sure where Andrew is, enjoying in maybe Albania or somewhere bizarre like that. But we're
eating cheese, probably.
Eating cheese, yeah, stinky cheese in Albania. We're here till Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow. Up next is Tom and Emily with Good Afternoon Britain.
It's a turbulent week in Westminster for the new Prime Minister. He's facing rebellions on his backbenches over benefits, over children, and indeed, he's already U-turned on one key environmental policy. A rocky road ahead.
It is indeed. And who is Kamala Harris? She's the woman who could be the next president of the United States. We'll get the lowdown on her track record and find out who exactly is she and what might she do. All of that after the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. There will be some showery rain still to come as we go through today, but for some of us it will be turning brighter. That's because the system that's bringing a lot of the cloudy wet weather is gradually clearing away towards the east and northeast. That being said, there will still be some outbreaks of showery rain across central eastern parts of England for a time this afternoon, and also across parts of northern England and Scotland. Quite a bit of rain still to come here, and that rain is going to break up a little bit, becoming a bit more showery perhaps, but it's further south and west where we're going to see the best chance of anything dry and brighter developing. And with that, temperatures up a little bit compared to yesterday, generally highs ranging in the high teens to low to mid-20s. As we go into this evening, and still some showery rain across parts of Scotland in particular, some hefty showers are quite likely, could even be some rumbles of thunder too, but also some bright or sunny spells possible. Also some heavy showers across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England too. I think further south across more central southern parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a drier picture, a few showery bursts perhaps, but also some breaks in the cloud leading to a bit of late sunshine. However, across Cornwall there will be a bit more persistent rain starting to push its way in, and as we go overnight we are going to see more wet weather feeding its way eastwards across parts of England and Wales. Further east, holding on to something a little bit drier and some clear skies here, and also across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, most of the showers easing overnight, and also some clear spells. But temperatures not dropping a huge amount. It is going to be another relatively warm night for most of us. Could be some early heavy rain across some parts of central eastern England first thing tomorrow morning, but that should clear away towards the east, and then thereafter just a few scattered showers around. It is looking like a drier and brighter day than today for many of us. A good chance of seeing some sunshine breaking through, and temperatures a little bit higher than today, and so feeling a bit warmer as well. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Go and get another glass of that bubbly, you've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 22nd of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Bide gone. With Joe Biden out of the presidential race, all eyes turn to his vice president. But who is Kamala Harris? And will she really glide to the nomination uncontested?
And rebellion brews. Labour is facing a revolt from its own parliamentarians on child benefit policy. One Labour MP is calling Starmer's position a form of social cleansing. Will the new government buckle under this growing backbench pressure?
And BBC in crisis. As the Strictly Come Dancing row drags on, Director General Tim Davie will face piercing questions from the media this afternoon. Is it game over for one of the corporation's most iconic TV shows?
Well, Well, it was all rather dramatic yesterday evening to hear the news that Biden is stepping away from the race, removing himself to be the presidential nominee for the Democrats. All eyes now, as you say, on Kamala Harris. Who exactly is she? What is her track record? She could now be the next president of the United States. Will she go almost uncontested?
Well, this is the big question, because, of course, we've seen a number of people row in behind her. A lot of the Biden campaign people have just switched to being the Kamala campaign people. But there have been some notable absences in endorsements, not least former President Obama, also most Democratic governors across the country, lots of Congress people biding their time, perhaps, to wait and see if someone else throws their hat into the ring. It's not all sewn up for Kamala Harris, but it could be, and time is, of course, ticking down.
Yes, and the money is flooding in, I must say. Loads of donors, many donors who were withholding their financial support from Biden because of his condition, presumably, and his performance, are now back. They're very much back. I was reading that Kamala Harris raised $1.5 million just